Hello, hockey fans. My name is David. Thought I would start this video at 8:17 on the evening of Monday, 26th of September, 2022, North American Eastern Time. Thought I would do is address the latest episode of the Gluttons for Punishment podcast, hosted by Anthony Bruno and Mike Lepore. And I agree with Mr. Bruno that yes, that yes, that that there's in terms of Dubas getting extended, it's it's not just not the right time to extend Dubas' contract, but the Leafs should have already fired the GM and President Shanahan, the latter of whom I call a Brendud, because President Shanahan has been a dud of a president in terms of postseason success. Wasn't it supposed to be a so-called Shana plan that was supposed to have meant a scorched earth rebuild that would make the Leafs into a competitive team for the Stanley Cup? That hasn't happened. So a bit after the 4-minute 20-second mark of this particular segment on that video, title being "What is Kyle Dubas' future with the Toronto Maple Leafs?" I'm just going to there you go. About Mr. Bruno having claimed that it would have been imprudent for Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, the ownership group of the Leafs, Raptors, and a few other Ontario sports teams, to get rid of Dubas before consulting with 2016 Leafs draftee and first round pick Auston Matthews. Wrong. Mr. Bruno is wrong. Why should MLSE's board of directors consult Auston Matthews? That shouldn't be the case. The Leafs should have gotten rid of Dubas after the 2020 debacle of a series in the Scotiabank Arena bubble against the Blue Jackets. 5 games, 2 shutout losses. Won the first game of the series and won the 5th and last game of the series. Shanahan should have been given the boot after the 2019 Leafs Leaf series loss against the Boston Bruins. It had already been 5 seasons already. 2014, 15. Yeah, 5 seasons. Leafs had not won a playoff series at all. 3 straight first-round exits. Shanahan should have been given the boot by then. Nope, that didn't occur. MLSE, obsessed about regular season success, decided, why bother giving Shanahan the boot? That was wrong. So in terms of, consult Auston Matthews? Come on. The Leafs haven't had playoff series success. It's, the time for change is now. But because of the decision that MLSE decided to make, the board decided to make, to keep Dubas on, at least until the regular season was underway, let's face facts, Leaf fans. Dubas probably ain't going to be going anywhere until at least partway through the regular season. Of course, it's quite possible the Leafs will start off as badly during the coming regular season as the Canucks did the last time around. Let's face it, the Canucks, after 25 games, had put up a rather horrible 8-15-1-1 win, regulation loss, overtime loss, shootout loss record. That was 18 points over 25 games. So in terms of big decisions, last regular season, during the previous regular season, the ownership group of the Montreal Canadiens, better known as the Habs, fired their longtime GM, Marc Bergevin, after a disastrous 2021 offseason. The Habs had gotten all the way to a cup final, mind you, not being, not quite swept, but still pretty close to it. The Habs ended up winning 1 game, and that was in overtime, Game 4. So, did Bergevin get to decide on contract extensions? He won't get to do that because Kent Hughes is a new guy in town. Jeff Gordon former New York Rangers executive, is now president of the Habs. So in terms of contract extension, in terms of contracts, expiring contracts that Kent Hughes will have to deal with during the 2023 offseason, we have whether to re-sign Yevgeny Dadonov, who has a modified no-trade clause. Last season, there was a trade deadline move that the Golden Knights had tried to make to trade Dadonov to the Anaheim Ducks. The NHL voided that trade. Yeah, the Golden Knights didn't, came up a little bit short of a playoff spot, but again, having limited cap space, being the Golden Knights moved Dadonov, whose $5 million contract expires this season. So what I'm just going to do is going to go to, let's go see here. He is, let's go to the history of Dadonov. So 2009-10 season, he's born in 1989, March of 1989 in Chelyabinsk in the Asian part of Russia, or Asian part of what was then the Russian SFSR. Alright, so first contract was with the Panthers. His draft team. He was drafted 71st overall in 2007 entry draft, and thus in the third round. He had a cap hit of just over $654,000 per season, 3 seasons. He was a restricted free agent. And then for a time he was he played in Europe, mostly in the former Soviet Union, before making his way back to the Florida Panthers, or his draft team. $4 million per season cap hit. He had a full-blown no movement clause in each season. Then he was signed by the Senators. Had a modified no trade clause. After his first season with the Senators, he was traded to the Golden Knights, and then the Golden Knights tried to trade him to the Ducks, but ultimately found a willing partner in the ultimately found a willing partner for him and the Habs. So Dadonov is a winger going into the final season of his contract with Habs. So unless the Habs decide to re-sign him, keep in mind that the Habs are just under $10.24 million over the cap, but with Carey Price on injured reserve, most likely long-term injured reserve, the Habs have a tiny bit of cap space before taking into account injuries to wingers, Jonathan Drouin, with a modified no trade clause, and Paul Byron, another center winger with a modified no trade clause, or without a modified trade, without any trade clause of any restrictive trade clause of any type. So among players on the injured reserve, we have Sean Monahan, Jonathan Drouin, and Byron Paul, who may play this season. The Habs will barely have the cap space. Well, will not have the cap space really to accommodate anyone. They'll have to move out, one or more players to be able to, if any of Monahan, Drouin, and Byron are ready to play, that's going to be difficult to do. That's going to be hard to do. So, yeah. So that they're the minor leaguers, but again, so Yeah, so there'll be, 3 players on injured reserve whose contracts end in June 2023. Who knows if the Habs will re-sign any of Monahan, Drouin, or Byron um, by June of next year. Hard to know what'll happen, but in any case, all three of those players, of those Monahan a center, Drouin and Byron center wingers, become unrestricted free agents unless re-signed. So, go to new contract renewals among forwards. Cole Caulfield, entry-level contract, becomes a restricted free agent at the end of next season, but with such RFA status not coming with arbitration rights. Mike Pizzetta is a winger like Caulfield, but in contrast to Caulfield, has arbitration rights as part of his pending RFA status. Will GM Hughes qualify Pizzetta? Because if among RFAs with arbitration rights, teams can decide, nope, they're not going to re-sign them. I mean, Ilya Samsonov, one of the goalies the Leafs have, did not receive a qualifying offer from his past team. Even though his team had to decide whether to extend him a qualifying offer. Jordan Harris on the D end has the 10.2C contract expiry, RFA status, unless re-signed. Corey Schueneman, defenseman, 27 years old now, has a RFA expiry. Jake Allen, 32-year-old, will become a UFA unless re-signed. So I'm going to go to the Habs minor leaguers. So Alex Belzile and Madison Bowie become UFAs unless re-signed. They're under contract to the Habs via the Laval Rocket. Among other players whose contracts expire, Mitchell Stevens and Otto Leskinen, respectively, a center and defenseman, have arbitration rights as part of their pending RFA status. The remaining pending RFAs among Laval Rocket players under contract to the Habs: Jesse Ilonen, Cameron Hillis, Lucas Condota, Raphael R.V. Pinard, Nathan Schnarr, Joel Teasdale, Anthony Richard will become RFAs, but without arbitration rights. Because this video is already getting quite a bit long, I thought I would do is go into part 2 in a moment, as soon as possible, in response to the Gluttons punishment video excerpt on the future of Kyle Dubas as GM of my hometown Leafs. Anyway, go Leafs go.